He was laughing with her, not politely, not the way you chuckle at someone's bad joke out of courtesy, but the kind of laugh that curved into a smile that lingered too long. Derek, my husband's so-called mentor or an old family friend, depending on which version Claire offered that day, he was leaned in close, his cuff brushing her bare arm, his fingers resting casually on the back of her chair like he lived there, like I didn't. The Harrington Foundation gala was always over the top, but tonight the ice buckets were especially full, and the room buzzed with the kind of false intimacy that only money and dim lights can buy. I sat quiet in a deep blue gown Claire picked out for me last month. Said it matched the color of the sea in Amalfi, but now, across the table, she was wearing that same shade of smirk while her fingers trailed over the rim of her champagne glass and her words melted into his collar. She didn't even look startled when she noticed me watching. No guilt, no quick withdrawal. She held my gaze and raised her glass, one eyebrow lifted as if to say, "Are you really going to make this a thing?" That was the moment. Not earlier when she excused herself for 20 minutes and came back with flushed cheeks. Not when she insisted we take Derek's table instead of ours because he pulled strings to get us closer to the stage. Not when she laughed so hard she leaned into him like I wasn't sitting 3 feet away. No, it was when she saw the storm coming and chose not to flinch. I reached into my jacket, felt the smooth circle of gold that had sat on my finger through her mother's illness, 2 miscarriages, a layoff, and her last promotion. I slid it off without drama, no clink, no gesture, just precision. I placed it on the edge of the champagne bucket next to Derek's half-empty flute. The metal steamed faintly from the ice. She saw it, blinked once, then I stood, buttoned my jacket, and walked away. Not fast, not loud, just gone. If you're still watching, take a second to like this video and subscribe. I know it's easy to scroll past, but it helps more than you think. And this story's just getting started. The air in the hallway was colder, quieter, away from the string quartet and murmured gossip. I walked past the coat check, past the doorman, past a couple snapping selfies in front of the sponsor banner. My car was parked across the street. Not valet. I don't hand my keys to strangers. The moment the door clicked shut behind me, I opened the app. Not my messages, not my bank. The vault, encrypted. 3 contingency triggers blinked in red. Public breach. Witness corroborated. Voluntary deselection. All set to manual override. I tapped confirm 1, 2, 3. In an instant, every shared card, joint account, and access credential was locked. Frozen. My attorney got the photo. Time-stamped, geotagged. Her hand on his, glass raised, my wedding band glinting like punctuation in front of them. Claire always said I was too methodical, that I planned too much, that I never lived in the moment. But she never understood. Structure is what keeps people safe. And when safety breaks, structure is what you fall back on. The gala lights faded behind me as I pulled into traffic. Somewhere in that ballroom, she was still sipping from her flute, probably laughing. Probably wondering if I was overreacting. She had no idea a timer had just started, or that someone else had seen it too. The leather seat felt colder than usual. I shut the door and let the sound of the gala fade behind the glass. Muted strings, laughter, crystal tapping crystal. I stared out at the streetlights for a beat longer, hands still on the gear shift, before I opened the Vault app. The interface was clean, unassuming. 3 icons pulsed like waiting eyes. Public breach. Witness corroborated. Voluntary deselection. I tapped each in sequence, no hesitation. Within seconds, the script did its work. Our shared checking account vanished from her phone. Credit line, frozen. The emergency fund I'd quietly moved under my name last quarter was untouched, growing. The house, refinanced months ago into a revocable trust, was now legally untouchable to her. It wasn't revenge, it was protocol. A small icon at the top blinked, evidence packet delivered. It meant the time-stamped photo, the one from tonight with her hand resting on Derek's wrist, the wedding band I'd left sitting like a witness between them, had been encrypted and sent to my estate attorney with full legal chain of custody metadata. He wouldn't say anything yet. He didn't need to. Claire used to tease me about my redundancies. "You live like a machine," she once said. "One day you'll wake up and realize you planned yourself out of feeling anything. Maybe, but feelings don't stop a slow bleed. Structure does." I sat back, let the seat warmers kick in. Watched a valet run by with someone's clutch in hand, high heels clicking behind him, probably late for the toast. I wasn't angry. I wasn't anything. I just felt done. Something old inside me had turned cold, not bitter, not sharp, just final. On her end, I imagined nothing had shifted. She probably thought I was sulking in the restroom or getting some air. She wouldn't check her card until later, wouldn't feel the chill of what just started until much closer to dawn. But the machinery was already in motion, quiet and exact. I hadn't told anyone about the contingency system, not my brother, not my best friend, not even the attorney who helped me design the paper maze. The protections were legal, ethical, and silently thorough. If nothing ever happened, no harm done. But if something did, the what if had just turned into now. Outside, a car rolled by with music thumping low, windows down despite the chill. A group of interns from the biotech table earlier crossed the street, their badges still clipped to their coats. I remembered one of them making a joke about Derek, called him the king of charisma. Claire had laughed too loudly. Her eyes sparkled like she was 17 again. And not with me. I pulled away from the curb. Slowly. No rush. There were no fireworks, no confrontation, no broken glass or shouted names, just a quiet series of clicks behind the curtain, locks turning, gates lowering, timers beginning. She thought it was a flirtation. I treated it like an exit. I was halfway down Rockford Avenue when my phone lit up on the passenger seat. Unknown number, no voicemail, no name, just a simple text, plain and unassuming like it wasn't about to drop another weight on my chest. Hi, I'm Madison. I saw what you saw. I didn't open the attachment right away. I just let the screen glow, let her words settle like ash. I already knew what I saw, her hand, his face, the glass raised like a toast to erasure, but it was the certainty in Madison's message that pulled something taut inside me. Not I think, not maybe. She wasn't guessing. She was confirming. When I tapped the file, it loaded slow, like the universe wanted me to feel every second of it. The screenshot was darker than I expected. A corner booth, low light, Claire in the same blue dress, no gala lighting, no spotlight glow, just shadows and intention. Derek sat to her right, angled toward her, head tilted down like they were sharing something private, and her fingers, not on a glass, not gesturing in some harmless anecdote. They were looped through his, intimate, familiar, 3 weeks ago, not tonight, not a one-off, not a slip. She hadn't just crossed a line tonight. She'd already paved the road behind it. Below the image, Madison had added, "That wasn't the first time I thought you should know." I stared at that sentence until the screen dimmed. Then I tapped to wake it again and reread it. Not out of disbelief, but to remind myself how simple truth can sound when it doesn't owe you anything. Claire always said I read too much into things, that I overanalyzed glances, tone, timing. She'd laugh when I asked questions she didn't like. "You're not building a case," she once told me. "You're living with a person." But people leave traces. They always do. And now someone else had seen them. I wrote back 2 words, "Thank you." She replied almost instantly, "If you ever want to talk, I've got a lot more. I'm sorry." I didn't respond again, not yet. Instead, I pulled over under a street lamp near the closed bookstore and turned the engine off. The silence hit hard after the hum of motion. I stared through the windshield, but all I saw was that booth, her leaning into him, like that space belonged to them now. It wasn't about a mistake anymore. It wasn't about one stupid moment at a gala. This was repetition, comfort, history. Claire had made room for another version of herself, one who remembered to meet him in quiet corners but forgot the man who steadied her through layoffs and funerals and 4 a.m. breakdowns. The numbness wasn't pain anymore. It was clarity, a strange calm that comes when reality stops wobbling and finally locks into place no matter how ugly it looks. I sat there a while longer, the street lamp flickering above me, the cold pressing in through the window. This wasn't about repair. This was about removal. Claire loved the ritual after galas, the unwind, usually somewhere dim, overpriced, still echoing with the last notes of the string quartet. She'd order a cocktail too sweet, take off her heels under the table, and lean back like she'd just performed for the world and now expected the curtain call. But that night at Aurelia's on Lexington, things went off script. The bartender tapped her card once, twice. The smile slipped. "Sorry," he said, holding it out. "Do you have another?" She blinked, laughed softly. "That's impossible. Try again." He did. Declined. She fumbled for her phone, still half playing it off, the way someone does when they're sure the problem isn't real. She tapped through her banking app. Nothing moved. She tried the backup card. Another decline. Then her Amex. Nothing. Her text came through to me at 12:47 a.m. "Hey, can we talk?" No punctuation, no explanation, just 6 words strung together like a rope she assumed I'd still catch. I didn't answer. I forwarded the message to my attorney and muted the thread. No typing bubbles, no receipts, just silence. She tried calling next, twice, then again, 10 minutes later, straight to voicemail every time. I'd already rerouted her number. Any attempts at contact now came with a log. That wasn't for drama, that was for records. Around 2:03 a.m. she requested a ride, denied, then another, canceled for failed payment. The rideshare apps we shared were now locked under my credentials, her digital wallet flagged as pending review. She stood there on the sidewalk, half drunk, fully confused. Her night clutch didn't have enough for a cab, and the ATM laughed her off. She called Tanya. No answer. She started walking. 3 miles back to the house. She carried her heels the last half of it, toes numb on the pavement, makeup drying into the corners of her eyes. I know this because the doorbell cam caught it all. Wide shot of her coming up the drive, barefoot, shivering, trying to buzz herself in. The security system didn't respond. The code had changed 3 hours earlier. She stared at the keypad like it had betrayed her, like it was supposed to wait for an apology. The porch light clicked off at 3:16 a.m. She sat on the steps for 11 minutes. No calls this time. Just her, alone with the cold, blinking toward the street like someone might come pick her up. But no one came. I didn't watch it live. I saw the footage in the morning, after coffee, calm, detached, methodical. It wasn't about vengeance, it was about signal clarity. She'd made a choice in front of me, so I made one in return. Claire's world hadn't crumbled yet. The chandelier was still hanging. The string quartet still played in her memory. But one by one, the lights were starting to flicker. Her cards, her keys, her footing, and the next switch was already flipped. The voicemail hit just after noon. I was halfway through reviewing a contract revision when the alert popped up. Tanya Kaplan, Claire's closest friend, maid of honor, godmother to our niece, the kind of woman who delivered pointed toasts and advice no one asked for. I let it play out on speaker, volume low. "Hey, it's me. Look, I don't know what Claire told you, but nothing happened, okay? It was just some drinks, just a dumb, flirty moment. Please, can you just call her? She's not doing great." The voice was brittle, too rehearsed to be sincere, but too shaken to be confident. Tanya always had a way of sounding like she knew something you didn't. This time, she sounded like she wasn't sure of anything at all. She was the one who vouched for Derek months ago. I remember the dinner. We sat in their backyard, lights strung above us like we were all pretending to be young again. Claire had invited Derek late, said Tanya insisted. "He's harmless," Tanya said, pouring wine. "They were just close in college. Nothing romantic." I'd nodded, smiled, filed it away. Now here she was, leaving voicemails like a publicist in crisis. I didn't call back. I didn't need to. I texted her 2 words, "Ask Madison." No punctuation, no follow-up, just a quiet suggestion that someone else in the story already knew more than Claire had admitted. The read receipt came fast, then nothing. An hour later, Claire's name popped up again, 3 dots pulsing, disappearing, returning. She never sent anything. Just sat there, somewhere behind her screen, trying to rewrite an ending that had already been printed. That afternoon, the chain began to fray. Tanya hadn't expected anyone else to be watching. Claire hadn't expected anyone to speak up. But Madison had seen what I saw, and once you lose control of the narrative, there's no clean way to pull it back. By dusk, a mutual friend tagged me in an old photo from our wedding on social. "Hope you two are well." Innocent, probably. Or maybe bait. I untagged myself and archived the image. We looked younger, dumber. She was smiling into my shoulder. I was looking at the lens. That night, Tanya posted a story of a wine glass and silence with a caption, "Some people only hear what they want to hear." She never tagged Claire. It was subtle, but it was the beginning. Her allies were starting to squint. not because they believed me outright, but because the version Claire fed them had started to rot under the heat of scrutiny. I didn't gloat, I didn't poke, I just let the silence do its job. If they were still trying to patch the boat, they hadn't yet noticed the water in their shoes. That was fine. There was more coming. She still had the login. I hadn't revoked it. Not yet. That would have looked too final, too angry. Claire expected a warning shot, a fight, maybe even a drawn-out Cold War. What she found instead was stillness, surgical quiet. The home server came up blank. No folders, no archives. The travel itineraries, home renovation receipts, the scanned family trust documents, gone. Her favorites folder, the one she thought was private, wiped clean. She tried the cloud next, still linked to her phone, still logged in. Except now the screen loaded with a single blinking message. This account has been restructured under administrative authority. She didn't know what that meant, not really, but she knew enough to feel the room tilt. She called the provider, sat on hold for 30 minutes before someone informed her the primary access holder had legally migrated all linked data under proprietary encryption. She asked who had authorized it. They gave my name. Next was the benefits portal. Her health insurance showed as inactive. She refreshed 3 times, clicked through the tabs. The dental plan still showed, mine only. Her information, transferred. An audit was pending. She hadn't known I even touched that file, but I had, a month ago. Then she opened the email. It wasn't from me, it was from a generic server notification. The subject line was simple, Clarity. Inside was one attachment, clarity.pdf. She clicked. The first page was a full resolution photo from the gala, Derek's hand, her fingers over his. My wedding band, resting on the ice in the foreground, refracted in the light like some kind of silent punctuation. Page 2, a log of small transactions, Venmo payments from her phone to Derek over the last 3 months, categorized under things like rideshare, wine, and once, disturbingly, therapy. Page 3, a single sentence. This is the version where I don't raise my voice. That was it. No accusations, no demands. Just the facts, gathered, organized, delivered with the same steady hand I used when I filed our taxes, managed our mortgage, packed her emergency go bag the last time her mother was hospitalized. She closed the file, reopened it, tried to edit. It was locked. Claire never liked scenes. She thought raised voices were for people who didn't have vocabulary. She liked precision, clean lines, cool rooms, and now she was in one. A very cold one. I knew she'd try Tanya again, maybe even Madison. I knew she'd say it looked worse than it was, that we were just going through a phase, that I was withholding context. But there was nothing left to interpret, no blurry photos, no hearsay, just data, just silence, just a line she had crossed and couldn't uncross, made visible in high-definition grayscale. The dignity she thought she'd be afforded, by charm, by history, by habit, had been quietly withdrawn. I didn't need to confront her. She had opened the file. That was enough. Monday morning was always Claire's reset button. She'd put on her neutral tones, loop the same subtle necklace around her collarbone, and sip her espresso while the world assumed she had everything under control. Routine made her feel clean, unbothered, untouchable. But that Monday didn't open like the rest. At 9:14 a.m., her phone lit up with a request from HR, "Please come to conference room B. Bring your laptop." That's not the kind of message you ignore. It's the kind you reread 3 times before standing up and adjusting your jacket like it might protect you. Claire walked in expecting maybe a policy update, maybe something about the gala photos floating around the office Slack. She didn't expect Eric's name. The head of HR, Maria Chen, didn't waste time. "We've received a tip regarding a potential conflict of interest," she said, calm like she wasn't about to drop a hammer. "Your name was listed on a vendor recommendation for a software pilot last quarter. One of the bidding firms is affiliated with a Derek Monroe." Claire blinked, recovered. "That's a coincidence. I didn't know he submitted anything." Mariah nodded. "You didn't list a conflict in your disclosure?" "No, I didn't think it was relevant. I wasn't involved." That's when the IT lead in the corner leaned forward and turned his monitor. "We pulled phone transfer logs. There were 7 Venmo payments between your personal account and Derek's over a 90-day period. Totals aren't high, but the context matters." Claire froze. It was the first time, maybe ever, that someone held a mirror to her in a room that wasn't intimate. A room where charm couldn't fix it, where the game wasn't about tone, it was about audit trails. She started to speak, but Maria cut in. This is an internal review. No need to explain right now. We'll reach out for a formal statement once legal completes their sweep. She was dismissed with a folder, a warning, and a tremor behind her left eye. I didn't hear about any of it from her. I heard it from a friend inside the firm who texted, "Everything okay with Claire? There's some buzz, something about vendor ethics." I didn't reply. There wasn't anything to say, but I hadn't sent the tip. That much I knew. Madison had been quiet since our last exchange, but quiet didn't mean absent. And sometimes the most devastating moves don't come from the person you betrayed, they come from someone else who saw you do it. Claire used to joke that she thrived in risk management because she was good at spotting weak points before they cracked, but she'd been sleeping next to one for years, ignoring every sign, laughing through every warning. And now, the cracks were spreading, quick and public. She couldn't write this off as personal, couldn't blame it on tension at home. This was her job, her credibility, her title. And someone had just pointed a spotlight straight at the mess, her mess. And it was no longer confined to our house. Claire had always hated how legal our marriage felt. She said it on our 3rd anniversary over wine, swiping a finger around the rim of her glass. "It's not romantic," she said, "knowing every asset's been itemized." I told her romance was safer when protected. She rolled her eyes and kissed me anyway. Last year, during one of her softer seasons when she was leaning into yoga, gratitude journals, and saying things like vulnerability is trust, she asked me to revisit the prenup. "Let's simplify it," she said, brushing my hand. "We're not those people anymore. Let's make it cleaner, warmer." I agreed, quietly. What she didn't see was the forensic accountant I brought in, someone who specialized in combing the soft edges of contract revisions. The old prenup was a fortress, but the new one? The new one hid a razor under velvet. Clause 4B, in cases of breach of public fidelity, documented and time-stamped, all claims to shared assets and spousal entitlements shall be considered null and irrevocably waived. It was signed, witnessed, notarized, and nestled between language about simplified distributions and adjusted contribution ratios. She never flagged it, too trusting of the warmth she'd asked for. After the gala, after the texts and frozen accounts, and the PDF she couldn't delete, she finally lawyered up. Her attorney, someone I remembered from a beach house closing years ago, called mine on a Thursday. His tone was clipped. "We'll be seeking temporary relief while we sort the marital funds." My attorney, Alan, didn't argue. He just said, "Please refer to Clause 4B, line 17, breach of public fidelity. I believe the timestamps are already in your inbox." There was a pause, long enough that I could picture Claire sitting next to him, arms folded, jaw tight, waiting to hear something she'd never prepared for. Then the line went quiet. He didn't hang up, just went still. Alan waited. "Would you like me to repeat it?" "No," the lawyer said finally, voice thin. "We'll review." They didn't call back. Claire had once told me that love means trust without backup plans. I disagreed then, and I disagree now. She wanted modern love without modern terms. She wanted the benefit of belief without the weight of proof. But trust isn't paperwork. It's how you behave when you think no one's watching, and on a very public night, under lights and crystal and champagne, she'd made her fidelity optional. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't retaliate. I just filed away her choices and let the clause do the rest. No payout, no rights to the house, no entitlement to anything not already in her name. She'd traded ironclad for intimacy and found out what silence costs when the paper stops bending. The courier rang at 9:42 a.m. Claire opened the door barefoot, a mug of tea in her hand, her robe belted too tight. She was still pretending this was just a rough week, that maybe if she acted calm enough, the world would reset itself. But she paused when she saw the envelope. White, thick, sealed with a name she didn't recognize, one of the firm's logistics contractors I'd used before. She hesitated, signed for it, shut the door. She knew before she opened it. Inside, divorce papers, filed, notarized, clean. Termination of power of attorney, effective immediately. And one photo, a printout. Matte, no caption, no editing. Just her own face, head tilted, eyes glossy, snapped mid-laugh at the gala. Her hand rested casually on Derek's thigh. The intimacy of it wasn't in what they were doing, it was in how comfortable she looked doing it. The image was cropped just wide enough to show the champagne bucket, and just sharp enough to catch the gold band I'd left behind glinting near their drinks. I hadn't altered it. I hadn't added any words. That photo didn't need a headline. She didn't call right away. Not for hours. Maybe she paced. Maybe she sat on the couch and stared through the blinds. I don't know what story she tried to tell herself in the silence. I only know what came next. At 3:27 p.m., my phone rang. Her name lit up. I didn't answer. Seconds later, a voicemail came through. I listened once, just sobbing, shallow, aching breaths. Not even a please. Not even a sentence, just the sound of someone realizing the ground she'd stood on wasn't hers anymore. The woman who once raised a glass in my direction, smiling like nothing could touch her, now had nothing left to say. I didn't save the voicemail. I didn't forward it. I didn't need to. The envelope had said everything. She was still in the house, technically. I hadn't asked her to leave, not yet. But the walls were bare now, her access revoked, her cards frozen, her counsel quiet. Her friends unsure where to stand. The life she assumed was hers by proximity had shifted under her. Consequences don't always come as screaming matches or shattered glasses. Sometimes they show up on a Friday morning, wrapped in clean white paper with no ceremony at all. Just a document, a date, and the version of yourself you never thought anyone else would see. Printed in grayscale, held in your own hands. It was a Tuesday afternoon, overcast, unremarkable. The kind of day that never makes headlines or memories, unless you've earned the stillness. The bistro was tucked between a bookstore and a dry cleaner, 2 towns over from everything that used to define my life. No music, no flower arrangements, just the clink of utensils and the occasional hiss of steam from behind the counter. I sat by the window, one hand wrapped around a ceramic mug. No tie, no performance, just clean lines and quiet breath. Across from me sat Madison. We hadn't spoken much since the early messages, just a few check-ins, a calm thread that never asked for more than it gave. She wasn't there to fix anything. She wasn't interested in rehashing pain or comparing wreckage. She just showed up the way people do when they've been through their own kind of fire. 2 coffees sat between us, untouched at first. The waitress had smiled when we asked for a second round, thinking maybe we were stalling for time. But the truth was, there was no rush. Nothing urgent. Madison took a slow sip, eyes steady. Then she said, "You looked calm that night." I nodded once, because I'd already decided, never again. Not just her, not just Claire. Never again would I sit through a moment that made me smaller to make someone else feel larger. Never again would I wait for a kindness that had to be earned through pain. Madison didn't press. She just let the silence sit there between us, full and unthreatening. Outside, a delivery truck rolled by. Someone parallel parked badly. Life continued messily, but it didn't reach our table. Claire had tried once to call again. I didn't answer. Her lawyer had emailed mine. One final note about personal property still at the house. It was boxed and delivered. No drama, no reply. She hadn't updated her social media since the envelope arrived. The woman who used to post every gala, every vacation, every moment where she stood just barely in front of me, suddenly had nothing to say to her audience. That was fine. I wasn't interested in retribution. I never was. I didn't need to be right. I needed to be free. And in that quiet booth with someone who knew how to leave space where others would fill it with noise, I realized something simple. Peace doesn't announce itself. It just walks in, sits down, and doesn't flinch. The chaos had burned itself out, and I was still here, just not the version she thought would remain.